What's up, you guys? This is Justin here, and in this video I'm going to go over the top money lessons that I wish I had learned sooner that would have saved me a lot of money, time, and energy. So the first one that comes to mind is be careful who you lend your money to and make sure you do your due diligence. I was not careful, and I actually loaned a bunch of money to a person who has yet to pay me back. It was around $150,000, and in the beginning, the first 6 months, he was making the payments regularly, and then something happened. I'm not going to go into the details of the story, but I ended up losing $150,000, which is a lot of money to lose. That was already taxed income, so it's kind of like taking a chunk of like $230,000 in gross profit before income taxes and basically just having it disappear. This particular person might pay me back someday, but I honestly don't know. He might not. So the first major thing, money lessons I wish I had learned sooner is when you are doing a lending deal and when you're signing a contract, make sure you're also getting some type of collateral. I did sign a note, and it was more or less a digital document where in writing, the terms looked amazing on it. They were heavily favored towards me, but the situation goes as I didn't collect collateral. I don't have anything tangible, and this particular person, I'm not planning on pursuing this. Hopefully, I'm just looking at it from a philosophical perspective that of morals that he will eventually hopefully pay me back, but if he doesn't, I'm just going to not focus on it. Like Tony Robbins had $250,000 embezzled out of one of his accounts one time. Jim Rohn lost at least $150,000 on signing a contract and not actually reading it thoroughly. So this happens to people who are very trusting like myself. But that's the first major money lesson. When you experience success and you have resources, make sure you're extremely careful about who you lend the money to and stuff like that. I mean, on paper, this particular person looked professional, is professional, you'd have every reason to think that this guy is a pro at what he does. It was for a real estate flip deal, but sometimes things can go wrong. So money lesson number one, I wish I would have learned sooner, is be very careful with how much money you lend if you're ever going to lend money to make money off of that money and where you put that money in terms of investing, okay? Because I'm somebody who looks for asymmetric returns. This particular deal was a huge asymmetric return where the dollar put in makes an extreme amount of money back on that dollar, basically. That's my specific definition, borrowing that asymmetric term idea. The second major money lesson that I wish I had learned sooner is to pay attention to what your gross expenses minus your net income is. Actually, the other way around. Your net income after taxes minus your gross expenses. And I say gross expenses, it's just a substitute word for total expenses. So let's say you gross like $10,000 per month in income, and your net income after all taxes, after everything, all your overhead is about $7,000. If your gross expenses are $10,000 and they match your gross income, you're actually losing $100 a day or $3,000 a month. So, especially if you're self-employed and you don't have to pay your taxes up front. One thing I learned when I had my first major successful year in business was back in 2014. I grossed about $365,000, which is about $1,000 a day from my advertising / consulting and also coaching businesses. And one thing I learned is I was matching my gross income with my gross expenses to a sense. Or for example, I was grossing about $30,000 a month, which is about $1,000 a day. And my actual gross income was probably around 17.5 to 23.5 in net income, probably after all business write-offs and expenses that I could possibly take to a degree. And one thing I didn't account for very well for that particular year was what my tax liability would be. So even though I had a ton of money in my bank account, when April rolled around in the next year, I had not recognized this simple formula. And had I just looked at what my net income actually was after taxes minus my gross expenses, I would have learned what my actual savings would have been that I could have used for investing. So it's kind of funny if you gross $30,000 and like your net income before taxes is like $23,000 or $24,000, and then after taxes, like your net income is actually $16,000 or $17,000. And if you're spending like $23,000 or $24,000 a month, you're thinking I'm living the high life and I'm also saving $6,000 or $7,000. Well, you're not. You're actually potentially losing $6,000 in that scenario. And I was in this scenario where like my net income before taxes like $30,000, and then all business write-offs $23,000, after taxes like $16,000. And if you're spending, I back then I was living like, I was just eating out a lot. I was doing all kinds of stuff, traveling, hanging out with other rich people who like to spend money. So I was spending a lot of money. But I was actually into that situation, accumulating debt. And although I had a lot of savings, I thought I was saving a ton of money every month because I wasn't paying taxes. Yeah. So fast forward till now. Now this particular money lesson equation is super important. These are some of these lessons that the first two so far kind of like after you're already making good money as a self-employed person or from a high-paying job as well. So the next major thing, money lesson I wish I had learned sooner, is to look for asymmetric return opportunities. These are opportunities where you could put in a bunch of money, like 50 grand or 100 grand, and make it all back after 6 months or 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, where within a half a year up to 2 years, all of the money is returned back to you. So these opportunities don't like jump out at you and like make themselves known. You have to dig for them, and then you have to do it. Like you have to do a lot of research, and you have to basically make sure and verify that these opportunities are legitimate. Obviously, I just got done telling you money lesson number one. When in a real estate flip deal, I found a deal like this, and I lost all my money, and that's completely my fault. I did not do enough due diligence at all in that particular situation, but I I am happy to tell you that I have had more than one situation where this has worked out extremely well for me. I can give you a few examples. Okay, so throughout my life, I paid for mentorship, and those mentors cost anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 to $14,000 to $17,500 in those ranges for different mentors. I can tell you straight up that if you take that amount of mentorship fee and then you look at how much it led to growth in my business, like I not only would recover that money in like a month or 2 or 3, depending on how good the mentorship was and depending on how much action I was taking and all of that. And that is one example, and that's an extreme example that requires a lot of skill that you might not honestly have, and time and energy that you might not honestly have because of the way your life is set up. So another way to look at this particular situation for an asymmetric return would be investing in a business or in real estate. Okay, so let me give you an example. Like in Arizona, Nevada, and California, there's like pool business opportunities where you can basically service a pool, like clean it and service it, fix the chemicals, do repairs and stuff like that. A lot of times there'll be business owners that are burnt out or just want to change of pace and want to sell their pool business, and they can basically sell you a $50,000 a year cash flow business for like 50 grand. And although it's a job, basically, if you're going to do it yourself, you could literally hire somebody to do all of the work for you. So for example, you could pay 50 grand for a $50,000 a year cash flow business, hire an employee and pay him 25 grand a year, and you can make 25 grand a year, basically just making sure your employee does his job. And then within 2 years, you will have made like all your money. And so now you've broken even more or less, not including the income taxes you'd have to pay. So probably like 2.5 years, you would have gotten basically your money back. And then you could either sell that and take a $50,000 capital gain, or you could just keep it and have a $25,000 a year passive income, which is just over $2,000 a month. That's an example of an asymmetric opportunity. Another example of an asymmetric opportunity is something I do with basically house hacking. So I put 5% down on houses. And when you put down such a small amount of money on a house, it's like such a small amount of money tied up, and you're leveraging the other 95%, and then you're renting out, 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms and living in the 5th one like I do. Like 18 grand can give you like 36 grand a year of rental income, and then it gives you tax benefits, and then it gives you principal payoff, and then of course depreciation. So I have a case study actually where I made 1,000% return on my money thanks to a crazy amount of appreciation throughout 2019 and 2020 and 2021. 2019, 2020, 2021. Yeah, exactly. But even if you just ignored the appreciation, I was literally still more than doubling my money. I was still like 250 to 300% with zero appreciation. Let me tell you that again. So if you're worried about like investing in real estate and it going down, if you follow that particular asymmetric house hacking strategy, even if you get 0% appreciation or it goes down and you follow my strategy to the T, you'll still get, like I did, between 250% or more in a return on your investment. So for every 100 grand you invest, or let's keep it simple, for every 10 grand you invest, you're gonna make 25 grand a year. So you're not only doubling your money, you're doubling it in a half. Worst case scenario. And if you add in appreciation, then you're pretty much tripling your money, or you'll be in that crazy range. If the appreciation is nuts, you'll be between 300% all the way up to, in my case, 1,000%. So just a quick recap, those are some of the quick money lessons. Make sure when you are lending money, if you have enough money to be lending, or where you're putting your money, like do your due diligence and risk management. Look for these asymmetric return opportunities with real estate investing or for businesses. You compare this to like stocks or something like that, and you're only going to get like 8, 10, maybe 12% on stocks. If you do one of these other things, one of these other investments, you can get 50% or you can get 100%, like on the business idea. And that's just one example. You can go to bizbuysell.com and look for opportunities like this. In another video, I'll break down funding, like how to get funding. You can use your own credit cards, which give you like 18 months, 0% interest. And you can keep rolling those over into balance transfers and new credit cards so that you can borrow like 25, 30, 50, 100 grand on credit cards, which sounds very risky, and it kind of is. But as long as your credit's good and you understand what you're doing, you can keep doing balance transfers and never pay really a dime in interest. And you just pay like a 3% potentially transfer fee. And so it's kind of like 3% interest over 18 months for this money. And as long as you just keep balance transferring everything out, you can basically, that's one way to do it. You can also do other ways of like public funding where you just provide collateral in exchange for the money, but we'll go into that in another video. I hope you got a ton of value out of this particular video on the core lessons I learned. Net income minus gross expenses. Make sure you're grabbing equity in something when you're lending, and effectively make sure that look for asymmetric return opportunities. And I hope a couple of these stories that I shared with you hit home. And cool, thanks. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more. I'm going to be doing new videos all the time, and I'll see you on some other videos. Bye for now.